Hello? All right. Okay, so I guess this is a Q&A session. And so I am an open book. Just ask anything you want. There are no bad, no dumb questions. Anything you want, I'm here. I'd love to share. So we can start. You bet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it was tough. One, to be honest, I had an amazing partner, my wife, who totally supported me, and it was so much easier knowing that when I came home, she was there. We were there to support each other because I needed to support her too. Um, so that's the first thing. Academically, it was hard because I really wanted to excel. I wanted to do well. I wanted to start my PhD afterwards, which I've done, and so I had to do really good grades. So I would take it all with me, and I would just do it late at night, in the middle of the night, or get up at 4 or 5 and do it in the morning. And the good thing was it something I loved. It was something I was actually tangibly doing at the time, except for biostatistics that would come later. But a lot of this stuff, what I was learning is what I was actually putting into practice. And so because it was tangible and applicable, it was a lot easier. But it was a lot of effort. It was hard.
Stand up. We got one over here.
Okay.
And your name.
Hi, I'm Chance.
Hey, man.
I wanted to know, how did you go about raising money for starting your business right after that when you said like you were really just kind of left with really nothing to do?
Yeah. A lot of prayer. A lot of prayer. I'll share this with you because we've got 45 minutes, is when we decided when we felt that we were going to be missionaries, and we really did feel that the Lord opened that door for us, is that we started trying to raise money. And again, we weren't planning churches. We weren't doing that, but we were still, my expression of my faith is through loving others and using the gifts that God gave me, which is medicine or innovative entrepreneurship. And so it was challenging even when we started out in the mission field, but we had these people in mind. So we started contacting people, writing letters. All the people we thought who would give, hardly any of them gave. And we were like, what is going on? Did we make the wrong decision? So I'd come home from work, I'd stay up late writing letters, emails, nothing. I finally just started getting into the scripture. And I just said, Monica, I feel like we're supposed to stop this and give it to the Lord. Just pray. And we did. And man, I'm not exaggerating. It was like the floodgates were open. People started calling me that I didn't even know and said, hey, I heard you were going to do medical mission. Can we support you? And I'm like, what? Yeah. And those people actually, they're still my good friends today. They're actually family. They still work with me. And that was 16, 17 years ago. Now, when we started my company, it was a little bit of the same, but a little more proactive prayer, is that when I started GHI, I wanted to have a grassroots movement of Christians who really wanted to make a difference in the world. And so I just started talking to my friends who most of them were docs or some of them teachers. And I started just talking to them and saying, man, this is what we're trying to do. Why don't you come to Africa with me and see what I'm doing and see what you do? And man, they would come and they'd say, okay, I had one guy, a friend of mine, he supported the 2 hospitals that allowed us to publish and show the government that this worked. And that was it, man, is just getting to people, letting them know me. But I also it's a fine balance. I didn't want to be the guy when people saw me coming saying, oh, there's Brad. He's going to ask for money. So genuine relationships is the key, is really build genuine relationships, and then it'll come if it's supposed to.
Hi, having seen the devastation and the poverty that you saw in Haiti and in Africa and all the places you've been, how do you balance that in your own life and in your family with your kids, especially your adopted kids from Haiti? How do you balance that coming back to America?
Yeah, it's a constant thing. It's really brutal at times. And I think when we moved to Haiti, we moved to a very rural village among mud huts. We lived in a cinder block house. And because we used to have a tin roof, but because our friends before us had been so horribly attacked, they had chopped their way through the tin roof to get them. We put on a cement roof. And so even with that, man, and first we had a dirt floor and then we put cement on it. But even with that, we knew that we could leave that village any day. We knew that we could get on a plane. We knew we had a passport that, Lord willing, would keep us safe. And so even living there, no one there spoke English, so we had to learn Creole fast, which my kids loved. And so my kids, they started out with that. That's their really earliest memories. And it was hard coming back to the States. We would take our girls grocery shopping, and they would have panic attacks. They said, we don't know what to do. We've never had these choices. And just picking out a candy bar would throw our middle daughter into this bless her heart, she would just start bawling. I'd say, baby, it's just a Snickers. And she said, there are too many. I don't know where to choose. And so I've kind of been fortunate because I can go back. I go back probably to Africa 9 times a year and work there. And I take my family with me during the summer, and sometimes we'll stay the whole summer together. But I'm in touch with my family, my friends there, the people who work with me. And so it helps me there. But when we first moved back, it was just brutal. And to this day still, if I take a shower, I think about it, that we ran out of water all the time. I'm so thankful. I thought about that last night. Thank God we have hot water. Food at the table. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. A car. We're in the top 1% of the world, guys. Every one of you probably have a car. So all that to say, it's still a constant battle. And depending where I go, about 2 times a year, not as much anymore now because our other work has started so much. I'll go to West Africa and I'll provide medical care, design policies, procedures for children rescued from child slavery. And I'll be on the lakes in Lake Volta with these children when they're rescued or not rescued, or provide medical care actually for children who are still in slavery. Those are more of the things that destroy my heart when I come back, because I hug my kids, and it's only by the grace of God, 2 of my kids who are Haitian. I know their backstory. It's only by the grace of God it wasn't them, and I don't know why it wasn't them. I don't know why it wasn't our daughter. We're separated by a zip code, man. So that's what I struggle with more, is acute when I come back, is dealing with that. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Colton. One of the first things you mentioned was the importance of intentionally surrounding yourself
Yes.
With people with the same heart as you. So when you were in Kansas City and you were at that company in which that was the case, can you speak to some of the challenges spiritually and just not conforming into those ways?
Yeah, it was brutal. It really was. And here's the thing. I think what contributed to it is that we literally in 2 weeks were moving to our dream. Man, we had gone and found a house in Mombasa, Kenya. We got our kids in Aga Khan in Mombasa. We were on our way to buying a tuk-tuk. Does anyone know what a tuk-tuk is? We were on our way. It's this motorcycle with 2 wheels with a cool kind of little car-like. And my wife was going to drive our kids to school every day in our cool tuk-tuk, and we were going to rock that. We were going to put a big speakers in the back and just have a blast. The little things that we were going to do as a family to try to help our kids be socialized and make it. And that literally was taken from under us. So we were starting with that, moving to the suburbs, what there's nothing wrong with. We need actually probably more people in the suburbs who are of faith. But it wasn't what we felt we were going. So that was our foundation. We were already struggling. And so when I got to the company, man, I'll tell you to the depths of what it was. My first meeting with our board, this new board, they introduced me, and the chairman says, well, Brad, we want to work with children. And how he would say it was just really derogative. He didn't understand, but basically what it was, they want to work with children in Haiti who are vulnerable and orphaned. And he says, but we want to put a chip in their neck so we can keep kind of track of them. I go, oh, you can't do that. We'll all be in jail. And they just thought that was so preposterous. And that was my first meeting. The next meeting is we all sat around a table. We had an agenda, and we had to practice how we would speak when we got on cable TV at this time, to show you how old I am, it was Larry King. I don't know why my boss wanted to be on Larry King, but we'd have to pretend how we would engage. And it was so vain. And so everyone I worked with there, that was their goal. I was the new guy, and I was really foreign to them. So I immersed myself in my family and on our church and found some people who had done the work we had done, and just really, we poured into each other. I didn't bring my work to church. We poured into each other as people, and we pretty started quickly trying to figure a way to do it on our own. But also, by the grace of God, I was in charge of the work. So maybe not even, I probably traveled a little too much, but I found comfort in our work that was pure because I was over that. So there in the office, there was no safe haven. But out, I made mine out. That was it. I don't even know if that was the right thing to do, but that's how I survived. Then eventually, we did our own thing. It was tough. Whoever. Sure. Yes, sir.
Let's get you some sound.
So after seeing all the death and heartaches along with the failures you've had, are there certain Bible scriptures you go back to help you get through it?
Yeah, I do a lot, actually. It's interesting that Rick busted out Isaiah 41. And this, I don't even know. This is what comforts me. It really does. It's when Jesus goes to the Nazareth, and it's his state of the union. It's where he is laying down the foundation of his ministry. And it's in Luke 4. Sorry, my glasses. 2 seconds. You aren't going to believe this, but I cannot read this. The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And to your question, is I always try during those times to go back to Jesus, and I go, why? Why is this happening? It's just a human nature thing. I'm not questioning him of allowing that. But I go back, and he tells us there's so many more, is that the poor will always be among you. And I think with him, how did he start his ministry? This is where he started. This is his State of the Union, as we would say. What does a president do when they do their State of the Union? They outline their administration, what they're going to do these next few years. This is their big statement. That's Jesus' big statement, to free the oppressed, to heal the sick. And so I keep going back to that and going, this hurts. He knows it hurts, man. But he said, this is where we need to be. And listen, that doesn't have to be in Africa. The most oppressed people you're going to find is in the corporate world. I see it, man. And so don't feel like you have to go to Haiti, Africa, or somewhere else. Man, God is going to, if you're a beacon of light, they're gonna come to you. Just prepare yourself, because God's gonna send you the oppressed. They're gonna send you the poor. And it may be in a multi-million-dollar company, but they'll come to you. So that's really, I just have to go back to him and say, okay, God, where are we in this? And what is your template? What is your heart? And that's where I go. There was someone over here. Yes, sir.
Hello. So one of the things that you talked about a lot is that God helped you get through a lot of the struggles in your life. Was there anyone or anything else that also helped you get through these
Was there
times?
what?
Was there anyone or anything else that helped you get through these struggles in life?
Man, I keep going back to my wife. I mean, we've been married going on 26 years, and if we're not in this together, we're in big trouble. And I think one of the things that I really, and I can say it, that I failed in, is that she and some people who were really close to me, they were saying, we really need to look at this, Brad. And I said, I think we're good. And I realized, actually, we stopped doing it together. And what I mean by that, I'm the president of our company. I'm going to listen to her, and I'm going to take her advice. But what I stopped doing is I stopped sharing with her. I stopped communicating on our challenges. And so even in that, she's helped me be vulnerable. And so have some other dear friends of mine, Michael Miller, who is an ACU grad. He's our pastor. I mean, we've walked through it. So surround yourself with some really good people who have been there. They've all made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. But it's those relationships. But I think they also have to be, the foundation has to be in the Lord with that. I just feel, at least for me. Did that answer? Okay. Namas? Yes, sir. Oh, man. Our funding model, it's on two points. Is one, is it's like the analogy I use, I don't know if it's an analogy or metaphor, it's a rose bush. What happens if you have this amazing rose bush when it first starts out? It's beautiful, but then, man, it starts going a little crazy. So what do you have to do? You have to prune it. So that's exactly what we've done, is we have had to look at our programs that we literally lost funding for. And if we can't make funding for that, have funding for that, we've had to cut some programs. And that's hard because one of the programs that we're cutting is in Malawi. It's in Salima District. When I first started there, it was unbelievable how bad it was. Matter of fact, I'll tell you a quick story. We're okay on time? We had just started working in Malawi. One of my dear friends who's an oncology surgeon in Houston, she's Malawian. Came here at the age of 18, missionary family, did unbelievable, went to medical school, graduated with honors. Now she's a surgeon in Houston. And we wanted to start, she had a dream of starting a hospital back in her area. It's called Salima District. It's one of the poorest districts I've ever been in Africa, and start a hospital. So we've helped her do that for the last 10 years. One thing I noticed pretty quickly is that, man, I'd go into villages, guys. Around there, we have Maganga village, just different villages, and there'd be no men or no women. There'd only be old people. When I mean old people for them, people my age, which is sad, and little kids. And I'd go, man, where are all the adults? And they go, man, they're dead. They've died from AIDS, all of them. I go, come on, you can't mean all of them. They go, yes. And so I realized really quickly, man, we've got these HIV programs going in other countries. We need to do it here. So I came back to the U.S. after a few trips there, and I was just really planning with Annie how to do this. Well, about that time, man, that I'd been back the second time, I get a call from her father in the middle of the night. They're 9 hours ahead of us, from Malawi. He's a clinical officer, which is like a PA or an NP like I am. He delivers 30, 40 babies a month. He's unbelievable. He said, Brad, I've got a problem. I go, what is it, Peter? And he said, man, this policeman brought a newborn baby to me this week in a sack. I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, this policeman was waiting on the side of the road for a bus, and there was it's all dirt, and there were these leaves and this trash, and this trash just kept moving. And so the policeman said he kind of kicked the trash to see what it was. He thought it was a rat, and he heard this little whimper. And so he saw it was coming from his bag, so he picked the bag up, and he thought it was a cat, a kitten. And there was a newborn baby with its umbilical cord in this paper bag. So he picked it up, got on the bus, went straight to Peter and said, here, can you save this baby? So Peter, they did. But this was 4 weeks after is when he called me. I didn't even know that had happened. He said, Brad, she's failing to thrive. She's not gaining weight, and she's going downhill fast. Usually when people throw their babies away, it's because that their mom is either HIV positive and they don't want their husbands to know because they'll be killed or they'll be thrown out of the house. So he said, we have no way to test this baby here now. He said, can you help us? So I said, yeah. So I got on a plane that next night, flew from Kansas City into Nairobi, Nairobi to Malawi. I met up with them, drove 3 hours to their house from the airport in Salima, the capital of Malawi. And that night, I took their baby's blood. Next morning, I got on a plane, had my buddies in Nairobi, who were the virologists, work at our lab doing the testing for babies, had them meet me at the airport, and Dr. Kamadi, my partner, said, Brad, by the time you get home, we'll have a result. So I didn't even leave the airport, flew home that night, got there the next day, and when I got there was a message for me that, Brad, she's positive. Man, I was broken because we didn't have a way to start it, but start her on meds. But by the grace of God, we had a friend from Baylor College of Medicine in the capital. We got her to her, and within a week she was started. Now she's an 8-year-old healthy baby who is one of my son's best friends, and she's undetectable. You don't even know she has HIV because she's so healthy. And even if we did a test on her, we couldn't find it unless we did a real in-depth DNA test, we'd find it. So I say that to say, to go back, is that we lost funding in our cuts with PEPFAR. We lost funding for that program because what we did is we ended up, that's insane for me to have to fly or anyone have to fly in to test a baby. I wanted to do it. I thank God I did it, but there are hundreds of other babies there that need that help that we can't do that with. So we started a program that next month in that hospital, and as of even today, in the entire country, it's the best performing district in the entire country for children with HIV and mothers with HIV. But we were funded by this government grant, and so that funding was cut. So we're in the process of having to cut that even until, so all that to say, it's been tough. We've had to make hard decisions on that side to trim our funds that are going out. But what we've done on this end is we've applied for several grants, and I've really kind of got back to my basis. When we first started this, we had a budget of $80,000. It wasn't easy, but it was something that you could accomplish with the Lord. You could accomplish raising $80,000, $100,000, $200,000 with individual donors, with people, with a grassroots movement. But when your budget starts going to $800,000 to $1 million to $1.5 million, you've got to have pretty substantial funding avenues that come in. So we went from a highly donor to a low donor, high grant, high contract. Like our government uses my intervention as their platform for HIV in Africa. And so that was a way we got funding, but that contract through PEPFAR was cut. So we're slowly going back to the model of trying to raise money on individual donors to get that in again, but we're also writing new grants. But we're trimming that rose, we're pruning the rose and making sure we're only spending money that we have, which is so hard. We've thought of selling them. I was very resistant to it because in the field of HIV, it's a very money hungry world. Matter of fact, even when we first showed up with this intervention, a lot of those no's came from, they're not competitors to me, but people who feel like you're competing because they're doing a program and they're getting millions of dollars of grants. And so we've slowly had to do that, but we actually have done that, is where we use licensing fees to license this intervention I have called the HIT system. So every hospital that we have, either an intimate, entity, a government, a grant, they pay a certain amount of money per licensing fee per month for that. And so we continue that avenue. When we add it, we have an organization. Brad, we want you to do 20 hospitals in our district. We say, okay, this is the funding. But the problem with that right now is that so many of those organizations, they've been cut too. And so their avenue of funding, their stream that's come in has been cut substantially. So we're all just trying to figure out how to do this. It's tough, but we'll get there. Yes, sir.
Hey, my name is Lincoln Jones. My question is, what's next for you? Is this a fight you think you'll fight for as long as you can, or are you looking to pass on the torch? What are your kids? Are they they've grown up with you doing this? Do you see them kind of joining you in this? Or?
Man, they have their own wings. I thought they would, but we were talking about that earlier. One is going to be a teacher. The other one's going to go into social justice and theology and here in the States, which I love. But so no, they're not. for us, man, we're really seeking the Lord in that. It's kind of it's an interesting time because we have this new innovation that we're normally when you test a baby, I've been working on this for 8 years. Normally when you test a baby that was born to an HIV positive mom, you have to wait 6 weeks. And there's the challenge because this mom goes to her village. To get her back, she makes $1 a day, $2 a day. She's had 6 weeks to think about it. She's had 6 weeks to think, what if someone finds out my baby's positive? And so the intervention I have now is to get those moms back. We've been by the grace of God, we've been so successful with it. But for the last 8 years, I said, what if we could test them before they even left the hospital at day one? In the United States, we can do it with a certain test, but it still is what we call sensitivity and specificity. It tells you how good a test is or how good it can pick up a positive or how good it can pick up a negative. None of the tests we have that can work in a field have good enough quality to do that until this year. And so we're the first organization with University of Kansas Medical School, where I'm associated, one of the schools I'm associated with. We're the first to test babies the day they're born at the bedside. And so it's just taken off like crazy. But with this cut in funding, we're at a really hard place because as a community, we're trying to figure out, is this worth investing in? So we have amazing things happening. We have amazing opportunity for growth, but we're also having to scale down a little. So my hope is that we'll continue to grow. My hope is in 10 years that I'm out of a job with this. Honestly, we're very close. When I first started this work in Haiti, 25% of babies who were being born to HIV positive moms were positive. It doesn't sound like a lot. That's an insane high number. That number needs to be a 0.3%. We're at 25% when I first started. We're now under 2%. This last quarter, we reported for the first time ever in Tanzania, we're at 1.7%. So my hope is that is exponentially going to go down to our goal is 0. And we really do have the ability to do that. It's crazy, but we do in this generation. So, man, I just know, I'd say a year and a half ago, I would have said, yes, I'm in this. But I really want the Lord to tell us what we're going to do. And I hope he does, but if he doesn't, I pray I'm obedient. But I hope in 10 years, man, I've worked on myself out of a job. I'm looking for a job, man, because with this thing, it's conquered. That's where I am.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So you've been where they are.
Yes.
Now, and what is your best advice for them while they're still here at ACU and while they're preparing for their future? What would you tell yourself, all those years ago when we were in school, or tell them now?
Well, my freshman and sophomore year, I would have said something very different. I came to ACU just to play football. I was a knucklehead. And you can look at me, dude, I'm not big. And Lord knows I'm not fast. So I went, though, and I got to play a little. But I can't say that I got in the wrong crowd. I got in a crowd who wasn't focused on the right thing. They were good people, but they weren't focused on the right thing. My junior year, I met the most amazing men, and they changed my life forever. Your dad is one of those, Derek Hood. It was unbelievable how my life changed. It felt like overnight by meeting these men. They loved people. They loved God, but they still were cool, to be quite frank. And I didn't have to go out and get crazy to have a good time. And you know what? I noticed they treated women with such respect. They treated each other with love and respect. It was incredible. So that's when I started searching for something when I went to ACU. So what I would have told myself my freshman and sophomore year is, man, you got to focus and start looking for people who will lead you up, not take you down. And you know what? You're still going to maybe fall. We all fall. Jesus wouldn't have needed to come. But you want to surround yourself with the kind of people who are going to help pick you back up, not keep you down. Junior and senior year, I was searching, man. I was on fire for the Lord. I didn't know where to harness it. Didn't know the direction to go. And by the grace of God, I got to go to Haiti as a senior for 3 months. So my advice to you now, where you are, you wouldn't be here if you weren't driven. Or maybe this is something new for you, but I would take that next step. Surround yourself, man, with people who want to change the world. Maybe that's a big, big dream, but I go back to my journal from 1989 and 90. Pray that God will send you someone who wants to also change the world, to bring God honor. Every day, pray. And man, God surrounded me with those people. And again, doesn't have to be in medicine, doesn't have to be in Africa. It can be in accounting. I can't do my work without an amazing accountant. It can be in marketing. Man, what you get to do with that's incredible. Finance, education, sports, athletics, anything, God can use you. But start surrounding yourself. That would be my advice. And you know what is, I love what Rick said, is take that chance, is do something significant. You're going to be scared. I'm scared right now. I'm fearful. I'm not scared. I'm wondering what's going to happen. But if you believe it's from the Lord, it's in your heart, it's okay to take a step. And you know what's even more okay? You'll probably fall on your face a time or two, and that is okay. So I would say surround yourself with good people, eyes on the Lord in that, but be brave in Him and be humble. But take those chances. Calculate them. They need to be calculated risks. But if they're from the Lord, you're going to be okay, even if you don't succeed, because if you don't succeed, I promise you there's something better there. And you'll thank God you didn't succeed. Oh, good.
Hi, I'm Cedric Garza.
Hi.
I was wondering, when you find these babies that are HIV positive and you start them on medication, what is their life? What does it look like for the rest of their life?
Great. Okay. So life years, we're still, because this is all so new, the latest models, which just kill us, because we just had a huge paper by the grace of God published in the Lancet, which is, we're just so honored to get to do that. And while we were doing that, we were looking exactly for that. And we were shocked that it was only 20 years old. I thought it would be 40 or 50. And granted, because this is so early, the newest kids are just now, we're starting to be able to look at them in the US and Europe. But when you're talking about countries in Africa, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old at the most. So we really don't know yet. We won't know for another 10 years, because it's often that HIV isn't what kill you. We're looking at accidents, malaria, poverty, malnutrition, other factors come in. So if we're looking at the States, man, I have family members and friends who've been positive since mid-'80s, and they recently ran the New York Marathon as adults. But as kids, as soon as we can get them, without getting too technical, there's this thing called viral load, viral reservoirs. It's when a baby's born, if they're not infected in the womb, perinatally infected, they're infected, they're exposed and infected through breastfeeding or through the actual birth process. And then they start making viral reservoirs. The virus just starts replicating itself. And so even if we start now, if we start a child at, say, 6 weeks old, 12 weeks old, it takes 71 years to get that virus out of that baby's DNA. But what we're just starting to do now is starting them at day one, when they haven't had a chance to viral to replicate and find reservoirs. So it all may change in 5 years, 10 years. Our hope is that it'll be, 40, 50, 60 years. It's just a chronic disease. I'll say that the oldest child I know that I started with as a baby obviously is 10 years old, and they're undetectable. If they took a test like all of us would take as adults, it would say that they're negative. But if we took a DNA test, it would say they're positive. So that is unbelievable. If they keep taking their meds, there's no telling how long they could live. A long, long, long life, we hope. Even better, they don't transmit it when they get married. They don't transmit it to their partner, their wife, or their husband, which is beautiful. And that's how we stop it in its tracks. Is that a good enough answer? Okay, awesome. Anyone else? Yes.
My name's Jared Feller, and
Hey.
a lot of the stuff you did through with getting in contact with your friends, how did you maintain or keep in contact with them to have a good relationship with them, even though they were so far out? To not use them as resources, but have ability to work with them, or they have something that they can help you with.
Which friends are you talking about?
Just the ones that you got in contact with, like the ones in Kansas that really helped you. They just seemed like they were spread out, but they would always seem like you guys could pick up right off where you left off or
Yeah.
something. And how did you maintain that close friendship to show you care, and it wasn't just something you guys were like friends in college, and then after college, you guys
Yeah.
never really kept up, because it really seemed to help
It did.
maintain and build your
Yeah.
vision.
Just genuine friendships. And here's the thing is that I would, it's interesting, me and a couple other presidents or CEOs, we get together every month and we talk about this exact same thing, because they all work in Africa and we have to raise funds. We'll meet in my office in Dallas and we'll talk about that. How do we maintain true friendships without them thinking we're using them? And I think at the end of the day, we have to let the Lord guide us in wisdom, in that I really just put our friendships first. And even in building those, when I was building those foundations, I never built it off my work or off of money for my work. I built it as true friends. And then as we got to know each other, quote unquote, intimately as friends, is that they would say, well, man, I love this kind of work. What do you got going on? And I could tell them, and they'd say, well, do you need anything? And I'd say, well, as a matter of fact, we need this. And they ended up, some of them became my biggest advocates for this work. But at the end of and some of them didn't, which is just as important, is that I have some who started with me and they just said, Brad, we can't do it. We're going through some financial difficulties. I said, dude, I love you even more. It's okay. It is fine. Our relationship is based on us. So I think it's about true and heartfelt relationships, and that's it. And then cultivating those a little bit at a time. Hope that helps.
Time for one more question.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Toby Faiga.
Hey, Toby.
Being an ACU alumni, what's your interaction been with the school, like with your nonprofit? Have you gone back to speak? Obviously, you're with Summit, but.
Great question. When I first started and we first moved to the DR, then to Haiti, it was incredible. I had students from ACU coming all the time, had professors, had different people, even a lady who works for us who is our director over Nigeria and Malawi. She's an ACU grad. Used to be Lacey Butler, Lacey Spangler. She's a nurse. She's a rock star, and she came on board after she graduated from nursing school at ACU because she was one of those groups who came and visited us. And I also did some stuff with her in Africa. And so when we were doing that, my relationship was very strong. We moved to Kansas City. It kind of dropped off. But now, in doing what we're doing, it's slowly starting to come back as, quote unquote, a relationship with the institution. I've done little things, off and on in the last few years. But that's slowly growing back. But what I will tell you is that my foundation with my friends and family at ACU, it's been constant through that whole time, which has been good. And there were times, actually, when I needed relationships that didn't have anything to do with my work. I would just say, man, let's don't talk about my work. Let's just be us. And so I think I probably went through a season of that when I lived in Kansas City, and now we're slowly coming back with opportunities like this. It's a great place. Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank y'all so much, man.
All right, guys. Brad, thank you.
Thank you,
Good
man.
stuff.
Appreciate it.
So why don't you stay up here, Brad? We have a tradition with Leadership Summit, and I'm actually, we have a gift for you, and we're just thankful for you sharing your story, for inspiring us, and we also have a tradition of singing